Wallace and Gromit first premiered in 1989 and has made other debut releases in 1995 and 2008. Well, today we are going to see all the characters that featured concurrently in the show, most of whom have been present since the first release. Most of them have been protagonists in all the years, and some are just added characters that were a support in the show. After that, we shall have a look at all the people who have been there since the first episode, some who passed away and were replaced with new cast members, and some who came later on in the series. Without much more to say, we begin with the main protagonist called Wallace, who was an inventor, and owned a dog called Gromit that was his longtime friend. This man was such a kind-hearted fella and so good to all. He was also funny with his behavior and his jokes, and was a lover of cheese. In his invention field of work, he was a genius and an expert, and we saw this when he created his very own moon rocket and also techno trousers which he gave to Gromit as a gift. His inventions worked, as we saw when he went to the moon thinking that it was made of cheese, only to find out that it was only a huge rock. And we saw that he was a romantic man too, proven by his love to a woman named Wendeline Ramsbottom, who unfortunately didn't love cheese, so Wallace had to let her go. Another character was Hutch, who was similar to Wallace in terms of being smart and also an inventor. He was a bipedal brown rabbit who always wore a woolen sweater and his slippers. He was smart but not as smart as Wallace. Both characters voiced by Peter Sallis, who was a British actor who was married ever since 1957 and was blessed with a son. Sadly, this legend passed away on June 2, 2017 from macular degeneration at the blessed age of 96. Baker Bob, as his name suggests, was a baker who appeared in an episode called A Matter of Loaf and Death. We later saw that he was murdered by a serial killer named Piella Bakewell, who we shall discuss later. His death was announced in the local newspaper and became the talk of the town in that whole episode. He was voiced by Ben Whitehead, who is also a British actor, who took the role of voicing Wallace after Peter Sallis's death. Now let's meet the other star of the show called Gromit, who was the pet dog and the best friend of Wallace. As all dogs, Gromit was so loyal and loving to his owner, and was also so intelligent and sensitive too. He worked as a sidekick for Wallace, and was always there to help him when he was too overpowered by his work. He was seen also to be of good nature and kind-hearted just like Wallace. Peter Hawkins rolled the voice of the dog, and was a British actor who was one of the most influential voice actors in the 1950s to the 1980s era. But unfortunately, he passed away on 8th of July 2006 from complications of pneumonia at the age of 82. Lady Campanula Toddington was not a main character, but appeared in an episode called The Curse of the Rabbit and was seen to be Wallace's crush. She was in a lineage of a family which held an annual giant vegetable competition at Toddington Hall for over 500 years. She was seen to be very compassionate to others, and also loved animals, fluffy animals like rabbits. Also, she was not like the woke generation, as we saw that she loved gardening, and was also a pacifist too. A beautiful woman voiced by Helena Bonham Carter, who is an English actress, and is well known for her blockbuster roles in movies that she has done in over 20 years. Victor Quartermain was a cruel and aristocratic hunter who was obsessed with Campanula Toddington, and was always begging desperately for her hand in marriage. He never liked Wallace, who was actually his arch-nemesis. An arrogant man he was, a greedy and pompous one at that. There was nothing he loved better than guns, money, and shooting the harmless bunnies. He was voiced by the famous Ralph Fiennes, who is an English actor and film producer, and will be in the next hit movie called 28 Years Later. There was this woman called Piella Bakewell, who was the main antagonist of the show, and was a recently divorced woman who lived alone with her pet. In the beginning of the show, she was seen to be so sweet and loving, but her true nature started showing as the show went on. She became a cold and ruthless psychopath who was very cruel and controlling, especially to her pet dog called Fluffless. She later went on to become a ferocious killer in the show. She was voiced by Sally Lindsay, who is an English actress and television presenter. Wendeline Ramsbottom was a wool shop business owner who was the daughter of a certain inventor called Fred. She was the lady whom Wallace fell in love with and was the one who did not like cheese and was allergic to dairy products. She was kind of an older woman who wore white earrings, brown shoes, and a beautiful green dress, and her head had the same shape like that of Wallace. Voiced by the beautiful Anne Reid, who is a British film and television actress who is a very well telenovela actress in TV shows like Coronation Street and The Dinner Ladies. Albert McIntosh was the local policeman who disliked the vegetable competition that was held in Tottington Hall because, according to him, it was nothing but trouble. He had that British mustache and big set of eyebrows. He was voiced by Peter Kay, an English comedian who has also written 3 books and has directed very many television and film projects. We all know Shaun from the show called Shaun the Sheep, who is a small sheep with white and fluffy wool, and also had black skin and ears. In this show, he was a timid and shy creature who was also seen to be so independent and a leader. It was Justin Fletcher that voiced him, and is mostly an English children's television presenter and comedian who was born in the United Kingdom in 1970. The psychopathic woman named Piella Bakewell had a pet dog called Fluffles, who was a cute dog that was crushed on by Gromit. She appeared to be a small poodle with white fluffy fur, and was shy at first, but after opening up to Gromit, she became a sweet and brave dog who was also so loving and caring. She was voiced by Melissa Collier, who is an actress that recently appeared in the 2022 movie called Suspicion. Now, the following characters will just be honorable mentions, because they only appeared once or twice in the show. Mrs. Gloria Girdling appeared quite a few times in the show, but only spoke once or twice throughout, and was mostly seen tending to her vegetables in the garden. She was voiced by Noni Lewis, who is an English voice actress that has over 25 years of experience. Miss Thrip was seen discussing about the shortage of vegetables that was going on in the competition, and was seen talking to Wallace about the situation. Voiced by the iconic Geraldine McEwen, who was an English actress that was famously recognized for her forthright speaking accent. She sadly passed away late January 2015 as she suffered from stroke at the age of 82. Miss Blight, on the other hand, was a woman who was part of the townsfolk obsessing over the vegetable competition that was being held in the town hall. She was voiced by a man called Mark Gatiss, who is an English actor and comedian. Mrs. Suzanne Mulch was a townsperson who was famous for her beautiful pumpkins, who was seen speaking only once in the whole show. The voice she produced was made by a lady called Betty Smith, who loved to go by the name Liz Smith, and was a legendary children actress and voiceover artist who spanned her career for over 60 years. She sadly met her demise one day before the 2016 Christmas Day at the blessed age of 95 years old. Mr. Martin Windfall was a character who appeared throughout the show, but did not speak much. Voiced by John Thompson, who is an English comedian and actor, and you might recognize him in the 2016 movie called Behaving Badly. Mr. Grobag was a minor character who was one of the people who founded the Vegetable Council, and was seen talking to the competitors in the Tottington Hall. He was voiced by Edward Kelsey, who was an English actor, who sadly passed away on April 23, 2019 at the age of 88 years. His cause of death was ruled out to be heart attack. And finally, we have Mr. Reg Mulch, who was the husband to Mrs. Mulch who we discussed, and just like a fine, refined gentleman, he did not speak much in the show, but was seen to be a lover of animals and nature. Dickon Ashworth voiced him, a man who was an English actor that was born in 1946 and started his career in the 60s. Thank you for being with me till the end, and I'll see you tomorrow.